So it's been a while since I have made a cross and pen video, and a lot has happened in my life recently and has caused me to return to blogging and to making videos. And the title of this video is called Broken. And the reason it's called Broken is because right now I am currently broken. Back on February 10th, I was out doing my sixth skydive in preparation to get my A license, the initial skydiving certification, and I had a rough landing, and I broke and dislocated my right ankle. I had to have surgery to put a cage on my leg to straighten my foot and allow the soft tissue to heal for a few weeks before having a second surgery to have some screws and plates inserted in my ankle. Still recovering, still can't put weight on it. But it was a life-changing experience. As my doctor had noted, it was a life-changing injury. Now, that term life-changing is typically negative. We associate something negative with that. Oh, it was life-changing. It was negative. But I'm a positive person, and I'm an optimist. And so for me, I look at that and I say, you know what, that life change is going to be a positive thing. It's not going to be a negative thing. So as I looked at that experience, as I sat around recovering, I went through a couple different phases. So the first surgery was only about an hour. I recovered quickly from that and didn't really have too many side effects from any medication at that point. But the second surgery was 5 hours. And between the first surgery on February 10th, second surgery on February 28th, I had been on different medications, one of which was Percocet, which is an opioid. And I had learned the hard way that there is this thing called opioid-induced constipation. Sorry to be indelicate, but it's a thing. And fortunately, a friend of mine who's a nurse practitioner recommended taking Miralax every day to help things along and kind of return things to a semi-normal state. So I did, and that did help. But it was during this time, prior to realizing that even though I had been through surgery twice and was upbeat about it and recovering fairly well, I got to a very low point. And when I was in this low point, I realized that God had broken me, not physically, but mentally. And it reminded me of a couple of things. One, it reminded me of the military. And a lot of the military's training, whether it's boot camp or survival training or some sort of special forces training, elite training, whatever the case may be, the body is often torn down to strengthen the mind. That's the purpose of really breaking somebody down, not to do it just for the sake of doing it, not to tear someone down and make them feel like they're not good enough. But when you're broken down, when you hit rock bottom, when you're faced with nothing but yourself, it's that look into the mirror, that look into your soul when you see who you are in a situation, and you see what you are in a situation. And so I thought about my life, and I thought about a verse that's probably the most popular verse in the Bible. At least according to Google, it's one of the most popular verses in the Bible, and that is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That is a great evangelizing verse. It's a verse that's near and dear to Christians' hearts because it's a verse that reminds us that God sacrificed his Son for us, that we do have salvation. But as I thought about that verse, I thought, you know, if I was going to rewrite that for myself in my current situation, I would change it a little bit. Now, I'm not trying to change the Bible, so anybody out there who's saying, hey, don't add to or change, I'm not doing that. But I kind of looked at that verse and I thought, you know, a way to write that for me that I think would be beneficial in my situation would be to write something like, "For God so loved me that he broke me." Because it was in that moment when I was at rock bottom, when I felt completely helpless, when I didn't have the control over my life that I was used to having. It was at that moment that I felt God's presence the strongest in my life that I've ever felt it. It was in that moment that I felt his love in a way that I've never felt it. And I thought it was ironic that, I had to be broken to experience that. I had to be put in a position where I had no choice but to be dependent on others and to let go of my own independence. And part of that was reaching out to God, and to realizing that, God was working in my life. There have been many times over the course of my life where I kind of thought, I want God to work in my life. I want God to show me what I'm supposed to do. And maybe some of you out there have been in that situation where you're thinking, I want to serve God and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And yep, I was there. And, I was a lackluster Christian, 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in Christianity. And, that's probably being generous. It's probably more like 1.5 feet in the world and 1 foot in Christianity. And I was just kind of going along, going about my business, sort of the mindset that, well, I'm a believer, something happens to me, I'm going to get into heaven. There may not be any rewards for me. I may not be in the good part of heaven. Maybe I'm going to be in the cheap seat, so to speak. But, I was confident that I would be there. And so what started as a bucket list item last year to go skydiving turned into something that I really enjoyed. And I still enjoy it. But, I plan to jump one day. For those of you watching who are saying, hey, will you jump again? I will. It won't be right away. I've realized I've got some higher priorities in my life. I'm trying to get my life in order from this experience. I've got lots of time on my hands because I spent a lot of time sitting behind a desk at work or sitting at home because I really am not too mobile yet. But mobility's coming. Recovery's coming. And as I think about that, I think about what I've been through and where I'm going next and what I'm going to do with this experience. And so I want to share the brokenness of my life and to let people realize that sometimes you have to be broken to be built back up. And I can appreciate that because in the military, many times in my career, as a retired Navy, I was broken. I was pushed to my limit. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a quitter. I will keep going. I will probably die before I quit. And it's a great mindset to have. But with that mindset comes the realization and the acceptance that you're going to hit a wall. You're going to hit rock bottom. And it's when you hit rock bottom that you sob, because you realize who you are, what you are. You have to strip all of those things away to get to who you are as a person. And then it's not always pretty to see who you are. It wasn't pretty for me to see who I was and what my life had become. But fortunately, every day is a chance to start fresh. And God is a forgiving God and a loving God. And so, in my broken state, I reflected on God's love, and I realized that it was sort of an ironic situation to be broken, to be at that low point, to just feel helpless, but at the same time, to feel an overwhelming sense of love. And I thought about a friend of the family, whose name I won't mention, but she'll know who she is if she watches this. Someone who has battled health issues many times in her life, has surgery probably once a year or every other year, a couple times, and has always been positive, always been upbeat, always enjoyed life, has always showed me love and kindness. And I used to marvel at that because I couldn't understand how somebody with those kind of issues in her life could just be so happy about life. And it took me experiencing God's love, God's peace from this experience to really understand how that was possible. And now I know how it's possible. And I realize that through this experience, God is using me. Whether it's my attitude in the doctor's office, the people that I maybe interact with and have interacted with throughout this process, I have no idea. I do know that I might be the only Bible that somebody ever reads. And so 5-minute conversations, a few comments here and there can make a difference in somebody's life. And so I have embraced this change. I have examined my life, and I realized that being broken is not always a bad thing. Sometimes you have to be broken to appreciate things. I never appreciated my wife in almost 32 years of marriage. I don't think I've ever appreciated her more than I do now. And it's not that I didn't know her or have the opportunity to see her in different lights, but when you're broken and you're dependent and you have to get to know somebody in a different way, it lends itself to a perspective that you usually don't get. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to write about this in more depth and call it the best worst experience of my life, because that's what it has been. Every day I wake up and I'm happy, I'm in a good mood. I come down and I have my routine. I'm fortunate that I get to sit and work at home. I work for a Christian organization, and the folks there have been phenomenal with support, and I cannot thank them enough. And it has really just been a great experience, as bad as people would think it is, to break your ankle, and especially a very unique break. It wasn't just a simple break, it was very unique. And recovery is going to be what it is. I'm going to push hard to recover sooner than later, because I want to get out there and live my life. But I want to live my life as a formerly broken person, as somebody who has learned from the experience. And I'm still learning. There are still things that I am learning. I'm learning about what matters and doesn't matter. You know, when you can't just get up and walk to the bathroom, when you have to hobble on crutches, you realize that, walking is a great thing. So you stop and think, well, what do I need in my life to make my life complete? Do I need a whole bunch of stuff? Or, is just the ability to walk sufficient? Having to rely on someone to drive me everywhere. Having people get my food. Although I can get my food, I can hobble around pretty good. But when you are in a corner, and it's a dark and a lonely corner, and it's in your mind, that's where you get broken. And it may be God doing the breaking. Again, it may be some kind of military training. It may be some personal training. Maybe you're training for a marathon and you're pushing yourself, and you're gonna break yourself. Whatever it is, when you get into that dark, lonely place, that's when you see the reality of who you are and what you are as a person. And for me, it took not just the surgeries, because they really weren't that bad. Surgery was actually probably one of my number one fears, and that must sound crazy coming from somebody who's jumped out of an airplane 6 times and wants to go do it again. But that doesn't scare me. But surgery scared me. And the first but I was, total peace. The first surgery went really well. Second surgery went textbook, according to my surgeon. And so, that as a fear no longer exists for me. God has taken that fear away, because he forced me to face that fear. And he didn't make me face it alone. And that's one of the great things about this whole experience, is from the moment, from the moment that this happened, from the moment that I hit the ground, and I knew as soon as I hit the ground, I broke my ankle. I knew it. God gave me his peace right away. I didn't ask for it. I didn't immediately stop and say, God, give me your peace. I didn't call out for God. I just hit the ground, picked up my radio, and told the folks that were instructing me that, hey, you need to come pick me up. I'm pretty sure I broke my ankle. They picked me up. It's my second ride in the Gator Mobile. One more, and I think I get a stamp card. But God gave me his peace without me asking. And it was with me the entire time. I was upbeat, I was positive, I wasn't worried about anything, which is very unusual for me because my mind races and I'm very logistic in how I do things. And so I usually plan things and try to figure out, well, who's going to get my car? How's my wife going to come get me? I was 45 minutes away from my house when all this happened, and so she was going to need a garage. She was going to need to pick up my car. Those are all the things that normally would have been going through my mind, but they weren't. Got to the hospital. Everybody there was fabulous. My surgical team, the ER folks. I made jokes because it was a skydiving accident. Everyone thought it was kind of cool. So I was sort of a minor celebrity, even though it wasn't really a great story. It was just a bad landing. It wasn't like I came down in the trees or something like that and, off course or anything. It was just hard landing, a little short of the grass. But I got to meet a lot of folks. I got to be positive and upbeat. And many of whom commented, to me, and they said, hey, you're really a great patient. It was awesome having you. And I don't say that to brag. I say it because I was able to be a great patient because God was with me, because God gave me his peace, through this process. He showed me his love. He broke me. So, when I stop and I look at people who have been broken, I understand where they're coming from. When I look at this experience, I really think of John 3:16, but I think of it in a different way. I think of it in regard to this experience to me, and I think, for God so loved me that he broke me. He broke me so that I would feel his presence, because I had no choice but to feel his presence, because I was alone and there was nobody there. It was me and myself and my thoughts and who I was. And I was confronted by that, and I had to deal with that. And at the same time, in this sort of lonely state of despair, if you will, there was just this abundance of love that I have never felt before. And to this day, I wake up happy. I'm happy all day. I'm broken, and I'm still happy. I wonder why I'm so happy being broken. I've gotten really good on crutches. If there's ever a crutch Olympic event, I'm there. But I'm happy because I realize that God has a purpose for my life. And it's not that I never knew he had a purpose, but I'd searched for it and could never really quite find it. Or maybe I found it and didn't know I found it. I don't know. But by being broken, literally and figuratively, actually probably literally, figuratively, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all those things, by being broken in that state, I experienced God's love, and I realized, hey, he has a purpose for my life. Part of that is this experience. Part of it is how I'm reacting to other people. It's how I'm reacting to this experience. It's what I'm sharing with other people. It's the story that I'm going to be able to go and tell from this experience, and whatever lies beyond that. And so it sounds crazy, but I'm thankful that this happened, because it helped me reprioritize my relationships with everybody, with my wife especially, with my kids. Not that I had bad relationships necessarily, and even with friends who maybe I wouldn't stay in contact with as much, that I would kind of let that go. Now it's a little different. Now I'm more in contact with folks. So my message to anyone watching is, sometimes God breaks you to show you his love, to show you your purpose, and to get your attention. Because when you accept Christ as your Savior, when you sign up, as it were, to be part of the Christian army, you're going to be called upon to do something for the kingdom. It could be to live a simple life and be courteous to other folks and just be a pleasant person. It could be something very simple. It could be more than that. But you're part of the kingdom. And as part of that kingdom, you have a role to play. And I have a role to play. And I know that I have that role. And I have an idea of what my role is now. And so, yeah, I'll end with this and say that, you know what? For God so loved me, he broke me. And I am thankful for that.